Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about The Handmaid's Tale Season 2, Episode 12. It's called Postpartum, so full spoilers for the episode, as always. Joe, it's funny, all season, well, ever since she was introduced, we've had predictions, we've had theories about Eden, we've referred to her, I think, in multiple occasions as a time bomb.
Yeah,
And I feel like they actually did something completely different with her than what we were saying.
yeah, yep. They really swerved us, didn't they?
They went a completely different route. They went a complete tragic route. And don't get me wrong, the reason for the tragedy is kind of from the same sort of, this was stemming from the same place as what we were saying, is that she's that indoctrinated. But in this case, it was less that she's going to get everyone else in trouble, and that she's so devout in her belief that she refuses to lie or to get herself out of trouble when it presents itself here.
Yeah,
Because, you know, we'll get to June and why she's back at the house in a second, but she's up the one night, she's pumping the breast milk, and she's putting it in the fridge, and she runs into Eden, who tries to like communicate. June in her way is kind of standoffish with her. Like, she tries to be nice, but it's just kind of like,
she doesn't really give a shit.
yeah, it's this. I
You know
mean,
what it is? It's like when a kid comes up to you and starts talking like, "I don't want to talk to you,"
kind of.
but yeah, you can't just be like, "Piss off."
I don't think I agree with doesn't give a shit though.
No,
No, I feel like that's been a bit too flippant because that's how I feel with kids, sure. But and I get why you're saying that in terms of how she handles her. But I think it's not that she doesn't care about Eden. It's more just the danger she poses, what she represents, and that. Like, I don't think it's not giving a shit, especially since where the episode goes. She clearly does give a shit because I think even in this scene itself, when she's talking to her, she kind of opens up and like says, "Oh no, she needs advice," because they do actually kind of bond for a bit.
yeah,
They kind of connect because she asks her for advice about love and how because I'm talking about babies, and she's like, "Oh, I hope God blesses me with baby," and he's, "Oh, I hope you get to breastfeed someday."
when I say she doesn't give a shit, I mean kind of in that moment she's so concerned with her own
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
right? She's just like, no, you're not interested at that point. Not that she doesn't care about her in general, like
sure, sure.
as a person.
And June actually kind of turns around and kind of honestly answers the question in this place, because she's worried that because she doesn't outright say that her and Nick don't love each other, but that's kind of what she's getting at, is that she's worried that because they don't love each other, they won't get a baby. Right? Not that that's how it works, obviously, but again, we're in a very strict religious community here
Yeah,
in Gilead, and June says, "No, if you can find love in this place, then you should." I feel like it's the most honest anyone's been with Eden, because it was almost like not outright saying, "Yeah, the society we were in is bullshit and this is all wrong,"
yeah,
but it's alluding to it, and Eden takes that advice. Now, I immediately worried as to what she was going to do with that advice, because it was very clear that she was like, "Oh, I'm in love with Isaac, the guardian." She doesn't say that outright, but that's clearly what she's alluding to.
yeah.
And I'm like, okay, where's this going? And they disappear. Because Waterford like storms in later and he's like, that Eden, she's missing. Or no, Isaac didn't show up for work today. And
Yeah.
meanwhile, Nick's been looking for Eden. She's not been around all day.
And then he's like, I think I've got a hunch.
Yeah, there's maybe a situation here because he knows he can't lie at this point. He knows at this point he has to just kind of come forward with it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'll backtrack and he'll get in trouble. So they've ran off, and the rest of the episode plays out as it does. And eventually, there's just a scene of like, oh, they've been caught, right? They're back. Eden and Isaac are back, and again, all the scenes are playing out. But we cut to Nick and Eden in a locker room, which I think is notable because it's like, okay, why are we in a locker room? Like,
Yeah.
it's a very sudden thing. It's like, okay, why are we here specifically? And Nick's like, hey, tell them this, tell them that, tell them he took you by force.
Just say that, yeah, you sinned, but forgiveness.
Yeah, plead for forgiveness. Because I was actually thinking, I didn't necessarily think we were going where we were going. I assumed she would be turned into a handmaid.
Yeah, I actually want to question why she isn't, because I mean, I thought that was the punishment. I wonder if it's to do with the fact she's never had a baby before, so they don't know that she's fertile.
Yeah, I think that'll be part of it. I don't know. I mean, actually, no, we do know that some people post Gilead have Well, no, that was someone who was already old and again had a baby already. Because I'm thinking, like all the people who have sinned who became handmaids, for the
Yeah.
most part, were pre-Gilead, right? That they were people from pre-Gilead.
Yeah.
But we do know that the one wife from earlier this season was turned into a handmaid. We heard that.
Yes.
But again, she had a kid already, so
Yeah, I do wonder if it's only if they know that they're
Yeah.
capable of having children.
otherwise the sin is the sin, and unless because
Yeah.
they get the opportunity. That's the big heartbreaking thing here is they're at like a school swimming pool, and they're taken up to the top diving board, and they've got like big weights attached to them by chain. They're clearly going to be drowned, and there's the head guard over behind them is like spouting all this babble out, but it gives them a choice to sort of repent, and
Yeah.
you maybe get the impression here that if if they beg in forgiveness hard enough, maybe there'll be a different outcome.
Yeah,
to this.
I think if they confess and apologize, I think obviously there'll still be a punishment, but it
Yeah.
won't be death.
Yeah. And there's a long pause. He asks like multiple times, and then Eden, instead of, and this is the funny thing coming from Eden, is that she's the one who's been like sort of brought up in this world. She's so devout. She's so to the point where she doesn't believe in lying in front of God. That's her whole thing here. She doesn't want to do that.
Yeah.
So, in a bizarre way, they've taught her so strictly about adhering to God that she's defying them to do that.
It's just put God above the state.
Yeah. Which they don't like very much, clearly.
No, they don't.
Because she starts talking about the importance of love and like
Yeah,
her.
it's the passage from Corinthians.
Yeah, there you go. You know better than I do, clearly.
Yeah, it's a Bible verse.
Yeah. Oh no, I knew it was a bit. Like, it sounds like a Bible verse.
Yeah.
It's just got that sound to it. But
But it's the one that you get at like a shitload of weddings because everyone uses it.
okay. But they, so they get pushed down. It's this big dramatic moment. The slow motion of them falling into the water. Everyone, there's an audience for this. Like June's
There
there,
is.
Nick's there, Waterford's there.
Serena is crying her eyes out.
So yeah, Serena can't handle it. And it's funny. I still stand by my she's crossed a line and there's no redemption. I still stand by that. But I do think the events leading up to this and then this as well are definitely.
It's just a step back towards humanizing her again, isn't it? She does care about people on some level. Maybe not all of them, but
I think. I feel like every episode now I've got damn hair in my mouth.
it happens at least once a week.
Now, I got that one quickly though this time to be fair, so I'll call that a win. Chalk that up for a good column. So, yeah, Serena's reaction to this I thought was fascinating, and I think it's interesting because there's a lot in here. There's a lot to unpack. On the one hand, I think you have Serena, who has been noticing what she's lost. Even last week when she says to Waterford, I gave up everything for this, and all I wanted was a baby. And she has the baby now, right? And we'll talk about her and the baby in a bit. But she's been realising more and more what she's given up, what she's forced others to give up. And on top of that, I think Eden represented kind of like what was supposed to be the idealistic, this is a woman of Gilead who's been nurtured through Gilead, and she's supposed to be, because she has been brought up here and been taught all these things from an early age, she's supposed to be the prime example of what a future wife should be, and yet she still, succumbed to the sin, to use their language.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think it's interesting that she wasn't happy. They gave her a husband, and Waterford's just angry at her. He calls her a slut at one point. He says, we're dealing with that little slut. He says that at one point. And, like, Serena is kind of like, no, she's an innocent young woman who's maybe made a mistake. I mean, don't get me wrong, the circumstances here are very specific because we're already past the point where Nick was like, it's alright, you can cheat on me, it's fine. I don't care.
Yeah.
Well, she does kind of apologise for it. She says, I should have been kinder. And they have a kind of a sweet moment where she's, okay, let's forgive each other then. Because this is, I mean, you said June didn't give a shit. Up until this point, Nick, I don't think, gave a shit too much. It wasn't until this whole running away and then the threat of the punishment where Nick kind of realised what he'd pushed her. Because he feels responsible. He feels guilty over this.
Definitely, because he had looked at her like a burden. Like, now I've got someone here that I've got to, look after, technically. And it's like, yeah, she'll cook, but I don't care. He was quite happy doing all this stuff on his own before.
Yeah.
And now, his indifference caused her to sin, essentially.
Yeah, I think in a weird way, and this is almost like getting into some weird like overlap of, and again, this is coming back to the fact that she's so young, but I think part of why he feels not just because he specifically how he treated her and how that drove her away, but I think in a sort of grander sense, this idea that, especially in this world, but just in the world in general, that when you're with someone who's young and impressionable and they're not fully developed yet, they're still learning the ways of the world, and she still is. She's still like 15.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And I think there's this thing where he should have maybe tried to teach her better. He should have been more of a parent, essentially, which is a weird thing to say given that it was his wife, but that's essentially, like, everyone around her should have tried to help and tried to...
Yeah, it's, even taking her age out of it, she was so sheltered.
Yeah.
Right? She was off away from this society for the most part. She was in her own little bubble, and then she's come and joined the real world, and it's like, right, now you got to grow up quick. But she just wasn't there.
And there was no help. There was no like guidance towards that. There was no. He was just very standoffish. June, I think, might partly even feel. I mean, not only just because she gave the advice, which kind of backfired. Because June said nothing wrong. What June said was a nice little sentiment, and it obviously wasn't meant to be taken as, "Oh, go run away with a guardian and get yourself killed," right?
Yeah.
But I think June similarly might feel responsible because she could have been something of a role model. She could have been something of a teacher, even though she's not really supposed to be in that role because she's a handmaid. She could have tried to help guide her in some way. And I don't know if that extends to Rita, who also kind of treated her like a burden. She, like, in this very episode, she's like complaining.
I never thought I'd miss her.
Yeah.
That's something she says. She says, I never thought I'd miss her, which is the idea was she was in the way. Is the way she felt before.
Yeah, and it's almost this guilt over these characters, not so much. And maybe Serena's like creeping into this category because she could hit her.
I think, definitely given her reaction at the end of the episode.
But the rest of the characters, not like Waterford himself, not the Gilead believers, but the people who don't believe in this world, who wanted to go back to normal. I think there's almost this hit of hypocrisy, where instead of trying to take care of someone who needed taken care of, they saw it as a burden and looked out for themselves.
They were so focused on themselves that they didn't look out at, bettering the community.
Don't get me wrong, I don't think any of them can really be blamed that much. I mean, Nick maybe a bit more so, but you understand where they're all coming from. You understand why they're all caught up in their own stuff. It's not like anything's been vindictive here. Nothing's been vicious. Nothing's been like that.
It's just been indifference.
Yes, and I think that's where the guilt comes from, and I think that's a fascinating. And it's funny because I wasn't going to be disappointed if they did what I thought they were going to do with Eden. If they did the exact thing I thought they were, I was like, oh, there's going to be drama from that. That'll be fun. That'll be exciting.
But this is completely different type of drama.
Yeah, but it's very effective, and I'm actually really impressed they completely say it. I mean, hell, speaking of Nick, he's just back to normal because it turns out misunderstanding with those Guardians, and Waterford sorted it out. Like, it wasn't a setup, which we were maybe speculating it was.
Yeah. There was still at points I was reading it could it have been, because he was like, thanks for the discretion around that situation. Like, he was keeping it quiet.
Yeah, maybe. I'm leaning towards no. I'm leaning towards...
I am as well, but there were just enough little lines where I'm like, maybe.
I think he knows he's the father, though. There was a couple of lines...
Definitely.
They were getting me because he's got him in his new big office at his workplace, and he's hiding his big painting or photo. I think it was a painting. It was a very realistic looking painting, I think. Of him, Serena, and the kid. And he's talking about the baby and being parents, and there's just all these little moments with Nick, and he's expecting Nick to be thankful for all the opportunities. Like, oh, you'll go far, Nick, and the usual sort of stuff. There's a lot of scenes like that with Waterford in this episode. I especially enjoyed the scene where he's with June. When he runs into her at night, and he is like, "Oh, so where were you hiding?" Because actually, before I get to that, I want to point out he asked a question along the lines of, "Oh, could you ever understand why a girl like that would want to run away?" And I'm like, who are you speaking to?
The one who at the start of the season ran away. I think the difference from his perspective is June sees herself as a prisoner, right? She has been punished by becoming a handmaid, whereas Eden was just a wife. I think he saw Eden as being given, she was raised up in position. She was given, a better life.
He saw like, I gave her my name. I gave her like to be associated with the Waterford name.
Yeah, he genuinely believes he bettered her life.
But what I think is interesting at the moment is I don't think he realizes who he's speaking to when he said that until after he said it. Like I think he says it really just angry and really believing it, and then there's the moment of silence, and I think he understands what he's just said, and that's what leads him to the conversation of,
Yeah.
oh Ed, where were you hiding in the house when we were there? With the
Yeah.
baby. When was that? And she's actually honest to a point. She's like, oh, I was in the act. She doesn't mention she had a shotgun in her hand. She was ready to blow her head off.
I think the point is they know that she chose to come back. She chose to be found.
Yeah.
They're aware of that, so it almost doesn't matter. They're like, go on, you might as well tell us, right?
Yeah, yeah. And obviously, like, yeah, she's not going to mention the shotgun. She's not going to mention certain details. And she obviously does sort of pad it a little bit. She says, oh, like, because he's like, oh, you heard us. Because we heard that. That was a very, very insightful conversation between Waterford and Serena. And she's like, and she lies outright here. She says, oh, well, no, I was in so much pain and my heartbeat was racing. Like, I could barely understand anything or hear anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, and then he starts asking about, oh, so, what was it like meeting your daughter and Hannah? And again, this is where he's looking for praise. He's looking for like,
Thanks. Gratitude,
yes. And she just says thanks, but I love that before she says it, there's this extreme close-up on Mossy's face where she just looks disgusted and she's looking over to him.
Yeah.
And obviously we always praise her acting, and here's no different than any other time.
The moment of honesty I really appreciate is he was like, so if you knew we were in the house, why didn't you just come back with us then? And it's just she was like, I wanted to spend some time with the baby before I had to give her up to you, and then as far as she was concerned, perhaps never see her again.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely partly honest. Obviously, there's also she thought, oh, I might be able to escape,
right,
and she'd give it a try.
I think that is honest as well, though. She was
oh, sure,
savoring the moment.
I think maybe even at the last episode there was maybe a point where she realised she'd have to go back a good bit before she actually did go out and fire the gun and made the choice. Like so no, that makes sense. But no, but then he's like, oh, just the thanks. They're not getting more than that, and I think he's expecting just like outright sexual activity right here in the kitchen.
He's waiting for a blowjob, basically.
very, very possibly. I don't know what specific act he's got in his mind, but that's maybe the one that's at the top of the list.
Yeah.
But she's like, oh, maybe we could play Scrabble, and she sort of says it in a way that it's like kind of a euphemism. It's like she's like, oh, we could play. It's been a while, but he's like, oh, maybe we'll see. It's one of these things that this show does so well, where she's playing the part for him, for the scene, to not get into trouble, to keep the peace, but you can feel the disgust in the behind every
I think
word.
Is an extra layer. I think part of it is she's like, let's stay on his good side, and he might let me stay in the house.
Maybe. Because we should go back to that actually and sort of talk about how she ends up. Because at first she's not. She's at the school where they keep all the handmaids, the centre, and because that's a good point actually. Because they almost had a new centre and they got blown up. So we're back to the school.
The old one. What a waste of a set.
I know. I have to assume that maybe it was a building that was just built anyway, and they got the rights to use it rather than building a set for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the explosion would have just been, obviously mostly CG for a start. So they're back in the school, and she's pumping breast milk. Serena wants her nowhere near the house. She doesn't even want to touch the baby. Right, that's her big thing. And they're commenting that there's very little actually being produced. She's getting little dribbles here or there.
She's double pumping, and just nothing's coming.
Nothing's coming, and I loved the closing of this scene. I loved actually when Aunt Lydia is like, blessed be, we'll do our best, and June tries to convince her, I should probably just breastfeed, like that's kind of what's supposed to be happening, and she's like, BS, but Serena, and you can tell Lydia doesn't like it. Lydia thinks this is not.
She's on June's side here.
Yeah, she's on June. She can't outright say that, and she doesn't want to be defiant, but she definitely clearly thinks that. But she's like, she
just kind of passed that along to Serena, doesn't she?
Yeah. But she's like, we've got several commandos, several families have been, sending bribes because they want you next because you're popular. And she's like, this one family sent these muffins, have one. And she's like, don't you think I deserve one? And she's like, I think I deserve a whole cake. Which, I love that response, because clearly June has went through so much shit, she deserves way more than that, but I love she boils it down to, I deserve a whole freaking cake, you bitch. Give me a cake. And I love that she takes the muffin, and then, I think it's the only the inner monologue we get the entire episode. Oh, it's Bran. Praise effing B. That made me laugh so much. The sarcasm when she realised it was just a Bran muffin. Like, oh, I thought I was getting...
Don't even want this anyway.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I thought we'd get like a chocolate chip or, something nice. Maybe blueberry or something. But no, Bran, the healthy muffin.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Do you know what I love about moments like that? I love that in a show, in a story with like the heaviest of subjects, with these weighty ideas and horrific characters and scenes and experiences, there's still time for the stupid little small things.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think that's some of the best use of the inner monologue, especially this season, where I feel like there have been points where it's been just full monologues and it's been maybe overdone, but here, just a line here, a line there that puts you in a mind immediately.
Yeah,
I think it's much sharper and more effective when it's used like that, for me at least.
Yeah, so Commander Waterford and Nick come by with the baby. The idea being that if she sees the baby, it'll get the pumps going, if you will. And I think Lydia even calls it priming the pumps, I believe.
Yes.
And sure enough, she starts milking right there on just...
It's as soon as she hears the cry.
Yeah. She's blessed be, and basically June convinces Waterford. She's like, oh, I should probably pump at the house. It would be more convenient. I could be there. And Serena's not happy when he gets back, and she finds out Serena's not happy that he's agreed to this.
Not at all. So you better not let her touch her.
Yeah. I don't even want her in the same room. I don't want contact.
Yeah.
Any contact. In fact, we get one of the I don't even know. There's so many emotions to describe the scene, but there's a scene where Serena essentially tries to breastfeed what she's calling Nicole. Holly is Nicole. Nicole is Holly. And she tries to breastfeed, and it's this really because I was like, what's she doing here? Because it seemed like she was undressing. I'm like, oh, is she going to try and breast? And I guess it kind of goes back to all the Phantom stuff from before, where all the mothers to be, if you will do all the little exercises and things that pregnant women are supposed to, even though they're not the ones actually having the baby. And here it was like, and I was like, this is really weird. We got a baby sucking on a nipple for no reason, other than to make you feel better as there's bugs flying around.
There is just a moth flying around my face every so often.
As you do. And it's a really kind of sad scene. Like, even though you hate Serena for all the right reasons, like, it's kind of sad and pathetic from her point of view, because she's trying really hard to be a mother, and this is almost like biological proof you're not.
Yeah, but she is trying her best.
Yeah. So we have that scene. It's a really bizarre because it's weird, it's bizarre, it's sad, it's intrusive as well, because you feel like she's like, I mean, her whole thing's intrusive to June. Obviously, she's taking her baby and raising it as her own, but like the whole thing, and I thought that was a fascinating scene, and it's actually like as we go through the episode, it's after the Eden stuff where that has affected Serena so much that because June walks past the door a few times and sees and hears the baby and like looks in, but keeps moving and doesn't go in, and she stops and she asks if Serena's okay, and
Serena doesn't berate her or anything like that, which I think is incredibly worth noting, given that the position of the relationship at the minute.
Hell, I think even the fact that June's because June began to become concerned with her in a way where she would check on her before the more brutal rape scene from a couple of episodes ago.
Yeah, and then hearing last episode that was her idea.
Yeah, and then hear her asking this. First of all, it makes June a freaking like what's the word I'm looking for here? Good's not the right word, and I feel like saying excellent or great isn't suitable. But she's a proper human being, right? She's so humane to ignore what Serena's done to her and ask her if she's okay, and because I don't even think you could call this spite if she didn't.
No.
She's in no way like in any way should she feel that she needs to. Like,
do you know what it is? It's again, it comes back to Eden. She was like, no, I wasn't there for someone, and they got killed. I think she's feeling the same here. Even Serena, who she hates, she's like, no, I don't. We know she couldn't kill her because she couldn't last episode with a shotgun.
Yeah, and I think she also witnessed Serena's reaction. She saw her at the drowning. Like we've seen this, and I kind of predicted where the scene was going, because this is what we end the episode on. Obviously, there's another plot to talk about with different characters, but this is where we end the episode on, and I was like, okay, this is clearly going to end with Serena actually like, letting her hold the baby, right?
Yeah.
This is clearly what it's going to be, and not only that, breastfeeding as well. And I think oddly, and this is weird for Serena, but I oddly think her attempted breastfeeding, where she fails and like feels horrible about it, I think that's almost the first step here to her accepting that she needs June.
Yeah, she can't do it alone.
She needs her, and I think going through the stuff with Eden, it's almost just this humanizing experience of, wait, we did this to this girl. As a community, as a society, as a group, we did this
not
to this
individually.
girl.
Of course, they feel individually culpable for not doing more to help personally, but they're responsible as a whole.
Which might be the key difference here between Serena and Waterford, where Waterford's like, oh, this is just, this is what she deserves.
Yeah.
And Serena's not. And again, I don't think redemption's on the table, but a flawed human being who at least understands her mistakes and what she's done. And understands.
Definitely, yeah.
I think we're getting to that at the very least. I mean, we have these final shots of her sitting by, and June's the one breastfeeding. And actually, I really liked the music that played out here. It went into the credits and kept playing.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really sweet little theme, which is not something I get to say often on this show. Not a lot of sweet themes. Well, after all this, I just want to mention that we kind of glossed over before Nick and June find out about Eden being missing. They're having a sweet little scene where she tells them the real name of the baby. And even says, "Oh, if that's okay." Afterwards, Holly, after my mother, is that okay?
Yeah, and they talk about running away and getting out of here.
Yeah, I mean,
together though, as a family.
Yeah, together as a family. Where would we go? It's like to the west, and she's like, "Still Gilead." It's like, "All right, Hawaii then." Okay, all right,
Yeah,
we could do that. So do you know what I think's fascinating, and what I kind of love about this is I actually have no idea what the finale is going to do next week.
no,
I genuinely don't know.
maybe slightly concerned in that I'm like, well, what do we do? But I mean,
I'm not concerned. I just I think it's a positive. I feel like we've spent all season thinking one or two things are definitely going to happen, and they've kind of not. They've kind of went in different directions, and I think in most cases for the better, just because it didn't feel like cheaper. Like there were dramatic points that didn't work, and here, like do we end with like Nick and June trying to run away? Admittedly, he's not in a great place right now because June tries to comfort him at the end and he kind of pulls away. And I don't think that's because he's mad at June or anything like that. It's just purely self-guilt. He needs to be alone.
For him, it's that he was so into June that he ignored Eden.
Yes, yeah. So he feels guilty, and June kind of represents that to an extent. But he doesn't blame her necessarily. But
he's like, no, I shouldn't be involved with her. I should be, ready for the next wife and treat her better.
Hell, what's actually I want to mention as well, when June and Eden spoke, June outright says, "Oh, if you're worried about me, I won't be here very long." Well, she was almost outright acknowledging to Eden that our suspicions were correct, which I think is worth mentioning. But yeah, no, I think that was a really sweet scene, and then like sort of like him like liking the name Holly, and makes everything that comes after a little bit more tragic. So I don't know. I don't know if that's like is the end game of this season. Like they're like, screw this. We're going to actually go for it and just run. Is that where we leave this season? Because we have Emily in Gilead still with a commander, and that could be like our in Gilead story, if you will.
Yeah.
If we really wanted to do that. Or how do we end? Is there more Canada stuff next week? I don't know. There's so many options here, and I'm not sure where it's going, and I kind of like that. I feel like there's so many TV shows where quite rightly it's doing a season arc, and you can kind of, once you get to like towards the finale, you might not know how it's going to end exactly, but you know the beats that it's going to have to play with and hit because of what it's been setting up. And I feel like here, it almost feels like we kind of wrapped up the season plot with this week's and last week's episode. And next week, I think, might be more of a season 3 prologue.
Yeah, yeah, quite possibly.
Which is a very cable show thing to do, actually.
Yeah, it is.
So it's not a regular. So I'm really curious, but again, we've been wrong so much this season. I'm not going to even claim to say that's going to be accurate either. I'll just wait and see. But it's exciting. But we need to talk about Emily's plot.
We do.
So Emily has got a new commander, and I think what's notable here is we know she's been through. In fact, hell, I think Lydia even says in the scene she's been through 4 in the last little while since she got back, and we're going to this house. And I'm like, okay, so we've got this commander. And she mentions something along the lines of, oh, all the economy in Gilead, like, we have him to thank for. He's a really important commander. He's high up in the ranks.
Yeah, and she's like, well, if he's that important, why does he want an awful handmaid like me?
Yeah, someone who's, been seen to, like, fight back and cause problems at various houses. I have to admit, I did enjoy seeing the previously on again of her kicking the heart attack commander.
Yeah. Yeah,
that did amuse me. So again, and I actually once I saw him, I remembered the news that Bradley Whitford was going to be on the show at some point, but I'd forgotten about it. So when he popped, I was like, "Oh, Bradley Whitford! Oh, I'm going to hate hating you. Oh, don't do this to me. I love Bradley Whitford."
I don't even remember that news happening. So this was a complete surprise to me.
It might have even been It might have been like he's a regular in season 3 or something with that news, and this is just them. Like, they've snuck him in.
That,
yeah, so he's set up. But he was definitely in the news at some point for Handmaid's Tale. And so I'm like, oh, Bradley Whitford, that's great. That's another great actor. And he is an actor who can do... Like, he's a very friendly guy, but he can do these sinister beneath that.
Menacing.
If he wants to, yeah. Like, he's fun stuff in Cabin in the Woods. Obviously, he's in Get Out. He's the dad in Get Out, so he's very good in that, at what he does. And I was actually wondering, because we've spoken in the past about seeing different commanders, and we were wondering at one point, would we ever see one who actually turns out to be not really a fan of this world and actually is a decent person, and he's in power, but he uses that power to try and help. And I almost for a split second thought this was going to be that guy, because when they come out of the house, there's art all over the walls, and it's a bit risky. And I thought, oh, is he like going to be a bit more liberal?
And then you see the wife, and you get the full picture.
Oh, not even before the wife. In the same scene, it's when he comes down and he catches Emily. She's looking at like a little comic book in his office. He's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" He's, "Oh, nothing." So he's like, "Do you know what the penalty for reading is?" And she's like, "A finger for the first offence." He's like, "Oh, a finger now? Yes, used to be a hand. The good old days."
Yeah,
and then he walks out the room.
See, I took that a bit differently when he goes, "Oh, back in the good old days." I thought he felt he was being a bit sarcastic, almost being like,
"Okay, all right."
Almost he'd pushed for toning it down. And he was like, look, almost like, you got me to thank for that, almost.
Because I was still half expecting there to be like a good turn when it was like private. Because later on, of course, we get the scene where we meet the wife, who's definitely seems to be very anti-Gilead. She seems to hate what he's done. And we find out that he's also behind the colonies, which, again, admittedly makes it hard to swallow that he's going to turn out to be a better guy. Because, obviously, the colonies are awful. And that maybe is the crux of why he's fixed the economy. But... she's like rambling. Oh, he's awful, and he's this, and he comes in and like grabs her and like puts her in the room, and then he brings Emily downstairs, sits her across the table, gives her a drink, and we find out here. It's a great scene. We find out that he's done his research because he asks her some questions. She doesn't really tell the truth and kind of leaves it blank. And he opens up that he knows she was a teacher at university, knows that she's gay, knows she has a wife and a daughter. And we end the scene in him even being like, "Oh, losing a child. That's like losing a part of your body,
losing a limb." But you know all about that.
Well, I think it's limb then part of body because that's technically not a limb.
Okay.
I think he says limb first, then he says again, losing a part of your body.
Fair enough. He definitely said limb.
He did say limb first, but the clitoris is definitely not a limb.
It's not, no.
Unless my understanding of what a limb is completely different from what the definition is.
I mean, it could be. We have proven many times we are not very knowledgeable when it comes to science.
Arguably, it's as important as a limb. But
yeah.
But and maybe not as useful practically, I suppose. But
no,
more important.
I mean, people may be of the opinion it is more useful. But practically speaking, you can't argue.
That's what I mean. Yeah, you can't do carpentry with a clitoris.
I'd be willing to see someone try. That'd be very impressive. That'd be a crazy talent to have.
That would be impressive. That would be impressive. Anyway, so we'll get that. So yeah, so it's a very sinister scene, and he's slowly revealing that he knows everything about her. And I was kind of waiting for the turn here, where he was eventually going to like, admit something or like open up to her. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's Bradley Whitford, and I really want him to be a good guy. Like I really want him to turn out to be actually just this kooky, crazy guy who actually is like, you know, like anti-Gilead or. And again, I don't know why I'm thinking this, because they clearly say he set up the colonies. That was his idea. He's awful. Yeah. And Emily, of course, has been there, so she instantly has this moment of like seething hatred.
Very personalized hatred now. It's like, no, you're responsible for what I did. She has a face to attach to what she went through.
And not even
someone to blame.
And not even just what she went through, what she left others behind to still go through and eventually, die from it. So,
that's true.
I do love how he speaks to Aunt Lydia though. Where he's just kind of like, she'll do, yeah, go away, get out.
Yeah, he's very blunt, isn't he?
Very, very blunt. Which is kind of why, maybe that's what was setting me on, that maybe he's actually secretly a good guy, is because he's so anti-Aunt Lydia, I suppose.
Yeah, he just doesn't tolerate all the fanciful bullshit that they dress everything up in. I think at the minute anyway, until we see any more, I think he probably does believe in all of it, but he doesn't like the shell that they hide it in, the way they dress it up to justify it to themselves.
Yeah.
He's just like, nah, this is just the way it should be.
Or even the religion. I don't think it may not even be religious, because when he's talking to her and she gives the stock answer of, I've been sent here by God, and I think it's when he asks if she misses teaching, and he's like, you don't believe that. And I almost got this smirk from him where he doesn't really believe it either. Like, again, he's very practical and logical to a sinister degree, obviously, but he's not doing this because he believes it's what God wants. He's doing this because
it benefits him.
It's practical to him and it works.
Yeah,
and that's why he's doing it. I'm really curious to see more of this, and I feel like setting this up implies to me we're going to get a lot of stuff with this. This is going to be, because Emily's been kind of like, we'll see her in an episode, we'll go a few without her, and she comes back. This feels like it's setting up more of an ongoing.
I'm really glad, because personally I find Emily more interesting than June, as I mentioned a few weeks ago. So I'm glad to see more, because I feel like it has been a little few and far between this season, with a little bit sporadic with how much we've got of her.
Yeah. Also, I love them bringing back up, you stole a car and run over a guard.
Such a good moment.
That was a great scene. I love that scene in season 1. I wouldn't say I find Emily more interested in June at the moment. I could do, given more time to explore and develop her. But she has a great character. We were excited about her coming back, because she disappeared for a long time in season 1, and we didn't see her until early season 2 again. So it's exciting to get more of her. And again, if June does get out, if June is in a completely different situation next season, if we have Emily in this position with what might be an even worse commander than Waterford.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I don't like about this, or maybe something that says why they won't go down that route, is it is Serena. Unless something drastic happens in this last episode, I don't think we can lose her from the show.
I don't think we can either. I just wonder if they're ready to have them separate from June, have Serena and Waterford just have their own side of it.
Yeah, could be.
I mean, that is possible, because it would just be like cutting to Canada for Luke.
It would, but everywhere we've cut before, we've had a protagonist to follow.
Yes,
we never follow someone
pro-Gilead.
Or just them. They're never the focus.
Until we do it, because I feel like that's probably going to be a good episode at some point, is they'll decide to actually focus on Serena.
Even when we've had glimpses of that, like in the episode where the Warfords went to Canada.
Yeah. It
was all related to... Well, no. But this is all from the Canadian and American point of view, almost. They were coming into their culture and witnessing it. So while we were seeing their reactions, it was
definitely the closest, though.
It was the closest, yeah.
Yeah.
But even that, I don't think it's quite there, like I said, because that's all about them being challenged.
And if anything, we're with Nick for the most part during some of that stuff. And this is not to say we never get scenes with them without June, because of course we do, frequently even. But it's typically when June is around in some capacity. I think the most notable thing to prove our point here is that if you go back to the start of the season, we didn't see the Commander and Serena until she got back to the house.
Right.
While she was on the run, we never saw them. Not really.
I don't think we saw them at all, did we?
I don't think so.
No, I don't recall them.
Yeah. So, That's kind of the point we're making, is that we typically only see them in relation to if June's around, or in that one example where they go to Canada, we're kind of following Nick and we're following Luke and we're following the other characters around them.
Yeah, I think what it is when we see them away from the June or someone else, it's always about their reacting to events that challenge them, right? To do with these other characters. It's rare that they just get their own plot.
Yeah. So, still though, I feel like there's a shift coming for season 3, especially since I mean, unless Serena somehow just wants June to stay, which would be,
Like I said, I think a lot of it will depend on what happens in this next episode.
of course it does. And even if she does want her to stay, like, surely there's a point where no, she's a useful handmaid who can give birth to someone else. She has to eventually leave, just from the state's point of view.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, I mean, I know they have this period of like 6 months or a year or whatever where they stick around. They're supposed to be there
and feed the kids.
Yeah, but so no, it's interesting. But hey, as per usual, Handmaid's Tale giving us lots to dissect and talk about just from characters alone. That's before we even start talking about filmmaking and the various shots. Because I think the slow motion as they go into the pool this episode was definitely a big cinematic moment, and everyone's reactions.
It was the shot as well after. She never tries to undo the chain when she's in the water. She kind of just accepts it's the shot of where she kind of starts floating back up a little bit, until the chain stops her. I think that's the really, the moment that stood out for me in terms of cinematography.
Yeah. So there you go. That's Handmaid's Tale, season 2, episode 12. We have one left, but the finale next week. So obviously we're looking forward to that. And join us next week for that. But yeah, listen to me thought the episode in the comments below, like and subscribe, all that stuff. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. You can do that over there. Handy to go over there anyway, because there's a big handy list of all of our shows, including all the audio feeds and all that sort of stuff. So you can go over there and check that out. But yeah, that's us. So thank you once again for watching and listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?